Before we begin this lesson, go into secondary media, go into multicam, scrub off your Mad Scientist Lab, and drop in 1401 Andy. Chroma key, green. Now we have looked at how we can strip white out, but we've already talked about the fact that if you're shooting against a white or a black screen, that's probably what you want back there. But if your purpose in life is to put me in front of the Eiffel Tower in Paris, then the best way to accomplish that is with a green screen. So let's talk just a few seconds about this. Number one, that is not, I'm going to the store and getting a can of green paint. That is a Chroma value green. It is designed to be picked up by these programs and immediately taken out. Now you could try it with other greens, but you're not going to get the same impact, so remember that. The other thing real quick is lighting. You have to be a little bit more careful about lighting when you're green screening than doing black and white screens. Uniform lighting existing across the entire screen. Good lighting for the talent or product or whatever you're doing, and it should work for you. Now let's put me here. Let's get down the wind turbines. Stick it out here on the end just like that. Let me go ahead and reselect me up here. Go into your effects. Go into keying. Now we've used Luma Keyer. Here's Keyer. Check that out already. It knows that green. It is familiar with that green. And if I drag Keyer over, almost a one-stop shop and you're ready to rock. Let's try a little bit of it, say right about here. In this chapter, let's have some fun. What do you say? Not that we haven't been having fun, I hope. Not too bad. Now there are a lot of controls for this. So let's go through them quickly. Under Video, up here in the inspector, there's Keyer. Now the first two you have is Sample Color and Edges. I'll tell you what though, if you take the time to shoot this correctly, you're going to save yourself a whole bunch of time trying to figure out how to make it work for you. What is Sample Color? Well, let's say the color that you want to take out wasn't a green. Maybe you filmed somebody against a very uniform colored wall, and that color did not exist in their clothing. So I'll mention something else about doing any of these screenings. If I'm filming in front of a white screen, I'm wearing dark clothes. If I'm filming in front of a dark screen, I'm wearing lighter clothes. If I'm filming on a green screen, I'm not wearing green. Now, I don't want to make this some kind of clothing issue right here, but that is part of it. The talent has to dress correctly. But let's say you don't have a green screen, and you want to pull out a color that's behind somebody. That's what this does. What you do is select it and come over here and actually kind of drag and say, okay, there is a nice big piece of the color I want to take out. Now, it's not going to make one difference to us because we had a green screen. It knew what to take out. It did it. But that doesn't mean you can't use Keyer for things other than green. Now, the edges, what they do, and let me go ahead and select it and show you this. I'm going to drag from there to about there. It does something really strange, I know. The outside one in the Chroma color, and then the inside one on me, and there's a line kind of right in the middle. What I'm saying with that, I can move the line, is how much do I want to include of the talent, and how much do I want to include, say, of the Chroma key, or how much do I want to exclude, and by moving this right here, I can get more. I can go away, I guess, or I can go this way and get myself solid. Now in this case, because we had a good screen, you're saying, well, I can still see stuff down here. What we can do is actually grab and move that around to sample a different area, or you could delete it. We don't really need it. But if you're having trouble with edges, like around hair, and it just doesn't look quite good enough for you, you can drag one or more of these and then use the slider to see if you can balance it out. Now the strength right here allows you to control the strength of what you're doing up to this point. And if you have more than one sample, you can move these and resize them if you want to, same as we did over here. You can jump to different samples to see what you have. Now down here, of course, we have our composite. We have our matte. Matte looks pretty good. And we have the original. And sometimes I'll go from this one to see if I've had any changes that I don't like in the overall color of the talent. Fill holes. Basically, if you have areas in the green screen that weren't lighted correctly, you might still see some of the green up here, and you can't quite get it with this. You can use fill holes. It works quite well. And the edge distance is the distance from the holes. It works with that same option. Spill level down here, allows me to suppress any of the background color that is appearing or spilling, if you will, on the foreground image. Now, we shouldn't have much of a problem with that. As you can see, it's not really doing anything. Again, if you get that good filming, if you get the good lighting, the good colors, you won't have much use for any of these options. It will do it with one click. We have an invert. Not that I want to do that. The other options we have are, number one, color selection. Now, you have manual or scrub boxes. If we go to manual, now what we're looking for here is the ability to increase the range of the colors that we're using in the mask. So if I come over here and grab it, now watch me. When I start going transparent again, now I go the other way, see if I do less. What that does is allow us to control what we are chroma keying, what we are getting rid of, if you will. You have the same options down here for black and white. You have a Chroma roll-off and a Luma roll-off right here. Chroma roll-off up here modifies the softness of the matte around the edges. And Luma roll-off does the same thing, except Chroma is used for the actual chroma keying colors, and Luma is the brightness values. You have a Fix Video button down here. If you are using compressed media, basically what this does is it will really help the edges not become pixelated. Now, it's on by default. If you've got good media, it really doesn't hurt anything. You might as well leave it on. I don't see it even as an option. It should always be on, in my opinion. We have some matte tools right here. And if I open that up, we have levels. We talked about that earlier. Shrink and expand the edge. You want to add some softness. Erode. Now, erode does that kind of like glowing kind of edge thing. But what it's really doing, it's eroding inside the non-chroma areas. And again, you can use that to add a little bit of softness to the edges. You have spill suppress with spill contrast up front. And we use that to adjust the contrast of the color being suppressed. You have a tint right here, and you can use that slider to restore the natural color of the keyed foreground subject. Sometimes when you're shooting green screen, that color spills or bleeds a little bit into the talent, and you can use that option to see if you can restore it. Again, in our case, we don't need it because we had a really good lighting situation. Saturation is the saturation of the tint that you apply. Finally, down here, you have light wrap. You have amount, intensity, opacity, and mode, as in blending mode. Now, amount controls the overall light wrap effect. Intensity is the intensity of that effect to lighten or darken the interaction of that edge. Opacity, if you need it, will allow you to fade the light wrap effect up or down. In mode, mode is blending modes. You can use blending modes to basically blend the edges into the background. Now, in our case, we probably won't see much, if any, difference if we use any of these. But in many cases, especially if you're not going to a true green or blue, can really help do that final piece to blend it all together for you. I'm going to take that back to normal because we don't need it. Finally, down here, you have something called mix. Now, that's the mix of what we just did with keyer to the image itself. So if you want to do this, you can. Most of the time, you probably don't. The keyer option in effects doesn't have to work with green or blue, the chroma green and the chroma blue, but when it does, it's almost one click and you're done. But even if you are using other colors, even if you are experimenting with a wall, this is the place to go, especially if you want to knock it out and put me in Paris. I'll go.